So what was different about this time through is we had a league. And so I think that excitement was building throughout the season, right? And then because we had such an amazing Olympics, all the countries did, people were really excited about continuing to watch and see how those storylines unfolded.
Welcome back to the deal. I'm Jason Kelly alongside Alex Rodriguez. And I love these where it's like game respects game. Hilary Knight joins us. Truly one of the GOATs of the game of hockey. What a treat. We've watched you over the years. We watched you win a gold medal not that long ago now. Probably feels like a long time for you since so much has happened in the intervening time. So welcome to the deal.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It feels like yesterday, right? The gold medal win.
Does it? Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't wear off.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Doesn't
Sometimes.
wear
And then
off.
when I'm doing something athletic, I'm like, wow, it's been 3 weeks into the off season here. I should kind of get back on the horse.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of the off season, I mean, it's such a fascinating time for professional hockey, especially women's professional hockey. It feels like that something really special and interesting is happening, finally, I dare say, with a professional women's hockey league. It's happening. So give us a sense of what it feels like on the inside and whether it does feel like, wow, okay, we're doing this, because you've been a part of this for a long time.
Yeah, well, I think first off, we just finished year three, right? So we're very much so in the infancy and comparative to other professional leagues out there. And I know our salaries were recently published, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, they're so low." And yeah, they are low, but they also are like a starting point for us to continue to build and grow and deepen our CBA when that becomes available to renegotiate. But yeah, I think for so long we craved investment and we needed a structure of investment and a vehicle to get us to that sustainability level. And we found that in the Mark and Kimbra Walter group. And it's been phenomenal to see where professional hockey has grown in such a short amount of time.
All right, so let's jump right in there because I know Alex and I both have a lot of questions about that deal. That is the deal that sort of
Mm-hmm.
sets this all in motion. We were fortunate to have Billie Jean and Alana on our show. It's now a couple years ago, and they were talking about sort of the development of that. And keep me honest on the history here. You and some other star players had essentially said, we're not playing until we have real confidence that there is a sustainable financial investment into this league. How did Mark and his family and Billie Jean and Alana ultimately, how did they convince you that they were for real?
Yeah, well, honestly, and that's true. We sort of embarked on something called the Dream Gap Tour, which we sort of curated an experience for the players to give them resources, some sort of training stipend to continue that programming so people wouldn't be left without or absent from playing games because, we have to continue that development piece. So we embarked on the Dream Gap Tour for a handful of years. COVID hit, we were able to float ourselves. And honestly, Billie Jean King and Alana Kloss brokering that deal and getting us in the right rooms to find the right vehicle. And the whole foundation of the conversation was we want to provide a professional experience to the players. And that's something that we lacked for forever, right? I think if we're looking back and reflecting, we really had a lot of semi-pro leagues and a lot of, just one-off sort of endorsements or trying to capitalize on a moment versus strategic investing. And so when we had those conversations, I think at first we were a little apprehensive because the hockey world is very insular and different, right? There's a lot of nuances to the sport, and to have an investor that doesn't necessarily know that world right off the hop, we're like, oh my gosh, how is this going to work out? But to have advisors and guidance from Billie Jean King, and she's been through it many different times before, and then also the promise that we're going to provide a professional league and we're going to give it enough gas and enough legs to be able to carry itself for many, many years was extremely exciting for us.
Yeah, Billie Jean and Alana are just incredible. They're forces of nature, and they work so well together. Going to Mark Walter, who's a partner, he's a governor in the NBA. When you see what Mark Walter's built at Guggenheim in like 25 years, it's incredible. Then he goes to the Dodgers and takes them from basically bankruptcy to the greatest franchise in the sport. And now he's bought the Lakers for $10 billion. Everything he touches turns into gold. But when Alana and Billie Jean put you in the room with Mark, what was it about Mark that impressed you, that you said, this is the right person for us, or the right group for us to follow?
Yeah, I think just the authenticity of the promise, right? And knowing someone who's done it before and having that experience with the MLS, like previously, when it's a very, very much so a startup league, right? And being able to move, I guess, in a non-traditional way while also having inlays that were traditional from his sports experience and other backgrounds was really exciting. So it was sort of this like 1-2 punch approach that we could really be dynamic in the spaces that we wanted to move in, the doors that needed to be open, and obviously a massive, massive strategic investment to be able to give this self these things wings. And yeah, it's crazy to see the growth in such a short amount of time. And I think just like as a player, when you're in it and you're so close to it, we're expanding this year another few teams, right? It's like, what are we doing? But we're already going to be at 12. Like, that's insane. So it just goes to show the promise and the commitment that this group has and where they want to take the sport, which is incredible.
And so when you go into that room, Hillary, what are you asking for specifically? Like you've seen what doesn't work. And so what
Mhm.
are the key components to the business from a player's perspective?
Yeah, and the simple answer is everything, right? We did not have really any structure to be able to support ourselves outside of what we were doing with our existing partnerships, and it wasn't enough money to give us the length and the depth that we needed. And so for many years, and we still don't necessarily have spaces that are created for us quite yet. So that's what's exciting with expansion. It's like, how close are we to breaking ground on our own practice facility, or where are we plugging in to some of these major arenas and venues. So that's super exciting. But yeah, I mean, I think health insurance was a huge starting point for us. Some sort of wage that livable, right? That people could make a career out of, because we had such a big drop off if you weren't on any of the national teams after college. It's like, what do I do now? So we're losing a ton of talent. And then just the all the things that go into one professional athlete being successful, right? Like, we're talking medical, business ops, hockey ops, the marketing structures, you name it. It really was this whole puzzle piece that we were able to put together.
Yeah, and just following up on what Jason just said, Hillary, like when you're in these rooms, you're in like the top tier of like intelligence, people that can actually grow a business and scale it across the planet. But people don't know you won two titles at Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, and then you got your MBA. When you
Mhm.
think about your MBA, how much comfort does that bring to you that you're in a room like this that you can actually handle yourself the way you have so beautifully?
I think honestly, between the MBA and just being on a team sport and being around team sports, like, I felt really prepared because we were with so many amazing people, and you really figure out whose strengths you're relying on and what you can bring to the table and how you tap into those individual strengths and then collective strengths. But I would say going back to school was good because I understood a little bit more of the lingo, and that's where I think I was a little bit excited about the law piece, because that's a completely different kind of jargon
Mhm.
in itself. So it was a really eye-opening experience and a really good personal growth experience as well, to just learn from these amazing people. But I think the biggest thing at the end of the day is, you think you're just an athlete, right? And you're like, oh, I don't. It's sort of that imposter system. You're like, oh, what am I doing over here? And then you quickly realize like how many of those skills that you learn in sport are life skills and so applicable to not only just life, but any industry in general. And so that was really exciting to experience that.
Oh boy, she just hit a key square in the Alex Rodriguez bingo card. Imposter syndrome. Alex, you've had these exact same experiences when you go into these rooms, right?
Oh yeah, and somebody that came on our podcast, Steve Young, who we both love and admire so much, he talked about it, and he's reached the pinnacle both in the football field with titles and Super Bowls, and he's also part of a almost a $10 billion private equity fund, and he's a partner. And to this day, and I believe Steve is now north of 60, he's still experiencing it, but it's okay to talk about it because that's how you kind of get past that moment. So I love that you said that.
And so Hillary, so take us in, into the more recent past where you're going from negotiating for health insurance, and within a matter of a couple years, you're playing in front of a sold out crowd at Madison Square Garden, like the world's most famous arena. We're all
Yeah.
familiar. Um, how, like, what are the two or three things that provide that level of jump?
Yeah. Well, one, I think having the best product, right? I think at the end of the day, like you're selling a product and that's your players, and you want to showcase them at the best of their ability, and you need to provide those things and those resources to continue to evolve, whether it's your superstars or your depth players. So I think they've done a tremendous job of being able to plug away at that. But then also, I think one of the smartest things, and I know it's a little bit different up in Canada, but because hockey is still very much growing in the United States, providing a free live stream that is like a cable level quality and caliber to fans so we can get introduced to new fans, and also continue to secure sort of those fan bases that have always existed but now can exist consistently, and they know where to go and they know where to find the best players sort of in the world, duking it out night in and night out. So those were the two things top of mind. But there's so many things that go into supporting us on this stage. And if you look like year one, we're kind of figuring it out, right? Like we're disrupting our own industry. And then year two, we kind of have a good feel and a sense of that. And then knowing it's an Olympic year too, and how many more eyeballs we can capture and continue that awesome momentum from the world's greatest spectacle and track them back to what we're doing was just a huge success point for the league. And I think that went well, as you saw at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. So talk about the Olympic side of this, because when I think about the success of the NWSL, for instance, clearly there are a lot of parallels here, but that sort of stage and the exposure, for lack of a better term, that the Olympics provide. Tell us more about the Olympic experience, because you've got 2 gold medals under your belt. How does that translate for you, both as a player who wants to continue her professional career, but also as a business in and of yourself?
Yeah, I think they just shine a brighter spotlight on what we're doing. And there's this different type of fan that watches the Olympics
Mm.
in most cases. And so what was happening before is we would have this amazing spectacle, US Canada, the awesome games, the heartbreakers, the success stories, and then we would disappear and then wait for another 4 years and we would build that momentum back up. So what was different about this time through is we had a league. And so I think that excitement was building throughout the season, right? And then because we had such an amazing Olympics, all the countries did, people were really excited about continuing to watch and see how those storylines unfolded. So the storylines I think there's just way more buzz around it, way more excitement. I think if I'm looking back, sort of the flurry of media leading up to it for me was crazy. It was almost like I didn't have any time in my afternoon available, which is a great thing, right? It's a good problem to have. But yeah, people were really interested in what we're doing. And so I think the league did a fantastic job of telling those stories. And it's really hard if you're not an NBC partner to figure out how you plug into that massive event. And they did a beautiful job of doing that.
So, Hilary, talking now as a governor of the WNBA team, the Minnesota Lynx, and seeing all the momentum you've experienced. I mean, literally, you've had a shotgun seat. Like, you've been watching this firsthand, from the CBA collective bargaining agreement to starting a new league to being one of the best players in the world. What advice would you give my partners and I as far as continue to build the WNBA, whether it's sponsorship, what should we be telling our TV partners, what should we be doing with ticketing, partnerships? Overall, what advice would you give us?
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily a moment, but a momentum piece, right? And that investment has to be strategic and authentic. And I think the biggest and the coolest thing about just women's sports in specific, if we put them in a silo, is the storytelling piece. And I think that's what's disruptive about them. And that's what gets fans even more engaged and involved, not only in the business side, but also a personal player side as well. And so that's what's been really exciting to see. So I'd say just authentic storytelling and starting there and figuring out how those partnerships really elevate the product, but then also the players' massive storylines that they can bring in. Because at the end of the day, we're all entertainers, right? And so I'm tuning in to watch that because I know about sort of the back end of what's going on. And that's exciting to me. And I want to see how everything unplays. And I think now just with, the way broadcast and streams are going, sports are such a massive and interesting thing to tune into, right? So it's really exciting to see the sports space evolve.
All right. Well, speaking of viewership, it would not be a hockey conversation if we didn't talk about probably the biggest storyline in hockey, men's or women's, over the past couple years, which is Heated Rivalry.
Yep.
Heard of it? Um, so, I mean, one of the fascinating things, Hillary, that we saw with that is something that you sort of alluded to this, which is sports is this kind of like cultural common language, and this notion that sports and culture, I mean, that's sort of the basis of this entire show, sports, business, and culture. But with something like Heated Rivalry, like, it pushes hockey into the zeitgeist and sort of the everyday conversation in a way that it hadn't been, at least for a time. Is there a way to capitalize on that sort of interest that people are just talking about hockey in general, and what do you make of that whole phenomenon?
Yeah, I think it was probably one of the best things to happen to the sport in general. If I'm just going to blanket statement, because I think sometimes I'm looking at the sport and I think we're a little bit behind the times, right? And I think it's wonderful to continue to have conversations and create more spaces for all sorts of different types of people who want to be fans of the sport that we all love, right? And I think Heated Rivalry was an awesome talking point and a great, easy way to jump into a conversation that people might feel scared about having a conversation about queer community, right? And intersectionality of hockey, because we want to create these safer spaces, and it is a very insulated culture at times, and so I think it was great to kind of open the door and shine a little bit of light in different areas and continue that dialogue. And also, I mean, it's an entertainment piece. I mean, it's awesome. We
Totally.
rarely get great like hockey movies. So I think we're all fans whenever a hockey entertainment piece comes out and you're like, okay. And by the way, I will sort of as an aside, when I met Connor Story in person, I was like, hey, where's the Russian accent? Like, that's how good this guy was, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's like, what's going on? So yeah, it's funny you bring this up because I actually just a jersey arrived this morning from those
No
guys,
way.
so that was pretty cool. Yeah, yeah.
So Hillary and Jason, recently I was reading this article, and it was predicting that by the year 2040, all the sports teams, the franchises, are going to be some of the biggest production companies in the world. Which, to your point about sports being the great AI trade, but also experiences, what's happening in New York right now, it's like mind blowing. It's all stories that we want more and more and more of, and we just can't get enough. So I think your forecast is spot on.
Thank you.
And so
Yeah.
how did, and so Hillary, like, but sort of putting some of those things together. I mean, you are the face of the sport. I'm not saying that as just to flatter you. It's true. Like, I mean, you're the most famous player in your game, and so with that comes a certain measure of responsibility, which clearly you exercised in getting this league started. What's the next thing that you think you can do? And maybe it is on the storytelling front or the media front or whatever that may be. What's something you can do, especially while we're going to talk about what you do after you play in a minute, but while you're still playing, what are the things that you feel like you can do to keep the sport front of mind?
Yeah, I think honestly just imparting what I've learned on younger players and getting them to a level where they're comfortable to be their own advocate and they're comfortable pushing the envelope and continue to ask questions and sort of disrupt the space as we go along, because I think that's a very healthy growth. And I think we're going to need, these young bright minds to challenge things in a very constructive way to continue to push the sport forward and also get what they've earned along the way, right? And so that's something I think that's top of mind right now for me, is that education piece. But yeah, it's exciting. I feel like the doors are wide open of, what's the next thing that I can do in the sport? And I'm sort of sifting through what I want to do because I love building, and I think I have a gift to be able to kind of see what's coming along and figuring out what problem I can solve for the future. And that's super exciting to me.
Yeah, so Hillary, I think you have a lot of gifts, and I think Jason, she reminds me of our mutual friend Grant Hill, and
Yeah.
Grant Hill is a Hall of Fame basketball player. Hillary, who is went to Duke, had a Hall of Fame basketball career, now is an owner of Team Sports, multiple. Also is a top guy in TV, one of the top guys in TV. Like he has a real estate empire. So I think your challenge is going to be, you'll be pulled in so many directions with so many opportunities. But I think if I can just ask you this one question, in a dream world, what would Hilary Knight be doing in 5 years? And you can wear
Yeah.
multiple hats.
Well, honestly, I love the sport. I want to stay in the sport as much as possible. And so when I look at, maybe this is more than a 5-year plan, but I would love to put together an all women's ownership group and
Hmm.
grab one of these teams whenever they do get spun off and are available for sale, because I believe in the product. I believe in the players so much, and I want to give them the world, and I want to scale this thing and be able to grow. But yeah, that would be, I think, sort of the first thing that comes top of mind. But what's exciting about women's sports right now is anything you really enter into right now, you're building, you're in that phase, and that's super exciting to me.
For the record, as we were prepping for this, Hillary, before you came on, I said to Alex, I was like, I bet she wants to own a team. I was like,
Yeah.
it's just like, I know enough about her to know the ways that she thinks, and also like learning a little bit even before, we got on with you about, and again, like understanding from Billie Jean and Alana's perspective, sort of like how this all came about, and the idea that you and the other players sort of came in. I just think it's an incredible case study
Hmm.
in I think players being partners from the beginning. And Alex obviously has a very unique perspective on this, having sat on both sides of the table. But you know when a player is considered a partner from the outset and doesn't have to sort of fight from behind to get to that stature, I would imagine it really changes the dynamic. Is that fair? Does it feel like that in your league right now?
Definitely. And at times there's that healthy, like, what's going on, right? Like
Sure.
we're battling it out. But no, I think, and I could be mistaken, but I think we're the first league to launch with a CBA in place.
Yes.
So that's historic in itself. And I think that just goes to show the promise of this ownership group. And, understand, like, sports business will evolve and it'll become what it will be. But, right from the hop, they were really interested in getting this right. And they continue to be that way, which is exciting.
Well, and Alex, and I think you remember this. Sorry to just jump in on this because I think it's a really important point, and Hillary alluded to it a second ago, which is one of the really kind of radical decisions that was made early on was that Mark and Kimbra basically said, we're going to own the league. Like, we're going to own all the
Hmm.
teams. We're not going to sell the franchises at the outset. We want to make sure that this is economically viable and sustainable. So we're going to own the whole thing and then sort of get to the point where I've got that right, Hillary?
Yeah, they're
That's sort of
single
the
owner.
next turn, right? Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and so, it definitely has, like, challenges, right? When you think about a single owner, versus, like, multiple, and both ways you can cut it either way, right? And so I think what's really cool is they see this as a massive investment, and there's a whole structure behind it. And it's not just, oh, we're just going to write a check and then we're going to sell it off to here and then hope for the best. And so there are protections in place to make sure that this thing does have the right structure to be here forever. And that's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
So, Jason, permission to give Hillary a little bit of an idea? Hillary, am I cool
Yes,
with
do
that?
it.
Let's
Deals
go.
on the deal. Deals on
I'm
the
very
deal. Let's
bullish
do
on
it.
you. I love it. So I'm very bullish on your career, past career, future career, and I've been a big fan since around COVID of all the things you've been doing. I kind of came familiar with you, but here's the idea: I think you create night sports. Okay, you like it so far.
Okay.
You go out and raise $250 million. Okay, you first once your league is viable and it becomes economic, sustainable. You can invest in a handful of teams. There's examples in other sports like Arctos and Dio that have done this, but specifically for women's sports. And then after you do hockey, you can go to softball, you can go to women's soccer, and you can be involved helping multiple teams kind of find their dream. What do you think?
I love it.
There you go.
I love it.
All
There you
right,
go.
done. We just created a business plan. This is new for us. Usually we're just like, hey, what if we buy this thing together? This is like we're launching a company. This is great. This is great.
Yeah.
No, I think
When does this go live? I gotta go figure that out first.
To sort of put a bow on this, one of the things that really excited me about talking to you was that we did have this initial conversation about your league with Billie Jean and Alana. And so I feel like we, even in that room, were like, and I'll maybe just tell this story of myself. I was like, oh my God, I'm talking to Billie Jean King. Like, I mean, so can you give us like
Likewise.
a Billie Jean King story? It's like, give us one Billie Jean King story from this process, because she's also like one of one in terms of her personality and her approach. You must have a good one.
Okay. I hope this isn't underwhelming, because the Blackhawks hosted us like years ago, and Billie Jean King, I don't think ever had a hockey stick in her hand. And they're like, will you do the shot from center ice? So they just signed her up for the shot from center ice. And the hole is like tiny, because they put the barrier on there, and you have to get the puck through there. And in front of a nearly sold out crowd at the United Center, she nailed it.
Oh
No
my
way.
God. Come
Nailed
on.
it. My teammate, Kendall Coyne Schofield, was teaching her how to hold a hockey stick, where to put her hands on the stick right before going out there. And if that doesn't just tell you who Billie Jean King is, like, she is a winner. She's a champion, right? And so that kind of started off the relationship. And I was like, yes. Like, you obviously, Billie Jean King. You hear the stories, the dollar, you've seen the movies, you've read the books, and she's got this aura about her. And anything she does, like, you got to trust her. And so to have her from the very first conversation, and then to have her as an advisor, it is just so surreal.
Wow.
I love that.
I can't believe you thought that story was underwhelming. That's one of the best stories I've ever heard. Oh my
Incredible.
God. It's incredible. It's incredible. All right. Yeah. Well, we know you got to go. Hilary, what a treat. What a pleasure for us. Thank you so much for the time. Best of luck. We're excited to have launched your business here on this podcast. And we can't wait to see you in the near future and see what you get up to next. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.